Canada's taxes, it's really hard to justify putting a business there. We need to get the corporate tax rate competitive. I mean, personally, I would like to eliminate the corporate tax rate because I think it's a hidden tax, and Americans should know, we should have transparency, they should know the tax burdens that they are paying. But having an uncompetitive corporate tax means that we're going to continue to export jobs and export American business functionality overseas. And that's the first thing.
So this is the second part of my question, because you had such a long answer, I decided to wait until later. But it does have to do a little bit with what the gentleman was talking about. I had asked Ken Buck at a party if he thought that Kevin London could win. Ken said, after what they've done to me, I don't think Kevin can win. They'll take that social issue and they will ram it down the Coloradans' throats. So when we're looking at the candidates that run for president, I can see that the opposition has two main themes that they go after candidates. One is social issues, but the other is elitism, that business is bad, capitalism is bad, you must be bad if you're a rich person. So I'm assuming that that's what they'll try to do with you, although they're going to have a problem with that because Jared Polis is in a way worse situation, so that may be temporary. But how can you answer that?
I would say in terms of being wealthy, he's in a way better situation.
Absolutely. So knowing, because I'm sure you've done opposition research on yourself too, that's only a smart thing to do. Knowing that's going to happen, because you've done some beautiful ads against Jared Polis. They're hilarious, I love them. How are you going to combat those attacks? Because I'm sure they're going to research every little detail about all the businesses you own and go after something tiny and blow it up into a huge thing. How are you going to answer that issue about being a capitalist?
I guess there's three comments I'd like to make to that. First, thank you for your compliment on our recent web video. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a minute and 46 seconds of your time. It's at firejaredpolis.com. So I commend you all to go to firejaredpolis.com and check out this web video. The second question, or the second part of your question, is about all the bumps in the road. And there are, of course there are bumps in the road. There are especially bumps in the road for someone who didn't wake up in third grade saying, I'm going to be a congressman when I grow up. So of course there are those bumps in the road. I've talked to people about those kinds of things. Bumps on the road on the way to creating value, creating financial success, and as part of being a human being, as opposed to part of being someone who spent their whole life preparing to be a congressman or be an elected official. But the other part of your question is about capitalism, and this is an area where we as Republicans fall short. We fall short in our rhetoric, and we fall short because we talk about the free market in pragmatic terms. We talk about how it is the most effective way of providing for our people, and it is. And we talk about how it's brought more people out of poverty than any other system, and it has. But we don't talk about the morality of the private equity system, and we need to talk about the morality of the private equity system. And that is that it is the only system that vindicates the human need for freedom. The human need for freedom is at the core of the free market. It's that exchange. It's that exchange when we voluntarily enter into a transaction. It's that voluntary nature that makes it moral. And that's how it works. That's why it works. And because it does that, because it's based in human dignity and human need to provide for themselves, that it is the only moral system. We need to be defending it as a moral solution. I'm proud to be a capitalist. I'm proud of the 1% of Jared Polis's wealth or whatever that I've achieved. I'm proud of that success. I'm never going to apologize for it. I think some of our presidential candidates fell short of that too. So thanks for that.
You don't like to brag, but if I'm not mistaken, weren't you a defender of capitalism?
Thank you. Great set of questions. I feel like I'm going to be having to pass out 20s for this set of yes, I was the inaugural Leadership Program of the Rockies Defender of Capitalism Award.
How many of you know about what the Leadership Program of the Rockies is all about? Leadership Program of the Rockies is one of the premier organizations in the state of Colorado dealing in training leaders for the future in constitutional conservatism. Ellen's a graduate, Linda and I are in it right now, Eric was one of the premier graduates. How many other people here have been to LPR? Oh my gosh, oh, well, Marge is a big one, yeah, Brad is a big one. This is an organization that has helped to train Eric to be able to do this. My question is this, I'm not, well, a big question. When I became the chairman of Boulder County Republicans, it occurred to me that one of the things we needed to do was to build coalitions with a wide variety of groups that have different political worldviews. There is no way that Republicans in Boulder County can win elections unless we take Ronald Reagan's advice and find those people who agree with us 80% of the time and be willing to tolerate differences of opinion of the other 20%. While it's true that a very large percentage of people, specifically in Longmont, who are members of Congressional District 4, are going to be voting for Cory Gardner because he's an excellent congressman and will make a great colleague for Eric when he gets to the House. We're all proud to be represented by Cory Gardner, and we all want to be able to vote for him again as our CD4 representative. However, the majority, the greatest part of the landmass of Boulder County is actually part of CD2, as was represented by all the hands that went up. We need to take into account what the population political worldview looks like in Boulder County in CD2. Let me share with you that in Boulder City and in a number of organizations that are representing Republicans as well as others throughout Boulder County, there are people who focus on a wide variety of social issues which may differ from mine personally. I'm a strong social conservative because I'm a Christian and I happen to believe those things, but I also don't throw that up into the face of other people. I want to be able to accept people because they share much of our political worldview in terms of the Constitution, limited government, strong national defense, free enterprise, you know the basics that we all share as constitutional conservatives and as Republicans in this county. My question to you after my speech is this. Undoubtedly during the campaign, you're going to be asked a number of questions about social issues. What are some of the social issues that you are anticipating being asked about, and what would your response be to some of those? If you have I'll take my 20 back.
Let me start by saying, give me my 20 back. And, you know, I did an appearance, a joint appearance with Senator Lundberg at another Republican breakfast recently. We took a lot of questions. And I would say half the questions were, how can we get Republicans to stop focusing on social issues and start focusing on what the voters, especially the unaffiliated voters, care about? Of course, the other half of the questions were all about social issues. So I think that answers your question. You know, I'm a liberty-oriented conservative. I'm a constitutional conservative. I want the federal government out of our business. I think that decisions in most of these cases, the federal government has no business. It's not in Article 1, Section 8 that the federal government should be doing these things. They're often the proper purview of the states to regulate things. You know, there's certainly a long list of social issues or civil liberties issues also that I get asked about. I get asked about everything from abortion to NDAA and its suspension of habeas corpus in some of those cases. I don't really want to go through item by item all of those different issues, but my perspective is that this is a country that's founded on individual liberty, and that our Congress and our government, our federal government, should operate with that principle of individual liberty. That if there are decisions that must be made, they should be made at the state level. Our federal government should do very, very few things, and those are the principles I can apply. And you can pretty much take almost any of those things and say, well, Eric said his principles, let's apply and see whether it will do. So even if one comes up that we haven't thought of yet, that's how that works. Part of that, by the way, is the federal government not weighing in on the scale, and they weigh in the scale with taxpayer dollars on things. I know that a lot of both Democrats and Republicans, for instance, feel strongly about abortion. But I hope one thing we can all agree on is we have to stop the federal government's